So let's go ahead and dig into Canes news. So on the 32 Thoughts podcast the other day with Elliot Friedman, he brought up that Jarmo Kekalainen is linked to be potentially the GM for the Canes. What Spencer? You want to go ahead and talk about that some?
Yeah. So Jarmo Kekalainen's been the general manager of this Columbus Blue Jackets for the past 11 years, from 2013 up until this past February when he was relieved of his post. Probably the best way to describe the Blue Jackets under him is good, but not great. Always looking like they could have done something and then couldn't quite put it all together. Not sure if it's him or if it's just the fact that it's in Ohio. And yeah, that being said, I'm probably not a huge fan of the potential of him coming here. I think I'd probably rather stick with Tulski. But Jarmo Kekalainen is known for doing some of the things that some of the fans have been antsy and wishing that Don Waddell was better at. So for one, he's able to sign some really big name free agents during free agency. The most recent big example is Johnny Gaudreau. A couple years back when he was a free agent. Hasn't turned out super well, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And Kekalainen definitely takes those shots. He is more so known, though, for taking big swings at the trade deadline or just trades in general. He's one of the few coaches or few general managers in recent memory to actually trade for a coach. Sent a second-round pick in 2017 to Vancouver in order to acquire coach John Tortorella. He also, back in 2016, I want to say, pulled off the Seth Jones for Ryan Johansson trade, 1-for-1, prying the 4th overall pick from a few years earlier out of Nashville. And then later, a big trade sending Seth Jones to Chicago and got a couple of first-round picks out of that. Including one of them that ended up being 6th overall because Chicago somehow got worse with Seth Jones on their team. He also, in back-to-back off seasons, acquired Brandon Saad, I don't remember which, from Chicago. And then the next season traded him back to Chicago in order to get Artemi Panarin. And Panarin played there for 2 years. But I'd say probably the biggest thing, though, was the 2019 trade deadline. He went all in that year. And I think it was because Panarin's contract was expiring. Sergei Bobrovsky's contract was expiring. They had a bunch of guys who were about to hit free agency, and he was like, "This is my last chance. We're looking decent. Let's make a run for it." Acquired back-to-back days, 2 separate trades with Ottawa, getting Matt Duchene on the first one and getting Ryan Dzingel on the second one, and then a couple days later, grabbing Keith Kincaid from New Jersey and Adam McQuaid from the New York Rangers. And that team, one of the downsides of making too many moves at the deadline is chemistry. Don't know how it's going to impact everything else on your roster, especially if things are already going well. And that's been a common rebuttal from Canes fans whenever one subsection of them says, "We never make moves at the deadline," and the other one says, "We like our group. We don't want to mess with the chemistry." And this is a big example why they were either first or second in the Metropolitan Division at the time of the trade deadline. They limped in as the second wild card into the playoffs. Almost missed. Took the last day of this regular season to clinch. That being said, once they're in the playoffs, it's a whole new season. And that year, the Blue Jackets won their only playoff series in franchise history as the second wild card, playing against the President's Trophy winning Tampa Bay Lightning, the Tampa Bay Lightning team that was also, at the time, the best regular season team in NHL history. I say at the time because the Bruins beat that last year, and funnily enough, also lost in the first round. But yeah, going from setting the record for the best regular season in NHL history to getting swept by the second wildcard team was pretty hilarious for Tampa. So anyway, that 2019 season is probably the biggest thing that he's known for, Kekalainen, that is. And so he's got an interesting strategy, and I don't know how well it'll work for Tom Dundon, for a Tom Dundon-owned team. But that being said, I'd rather stick with Tulski, more of the analytics sort of guy from my perspective. What do you think, Dylan?
Yeah, one thing I've heard that may be a little bit different from his time in Columbus. We mentioned last week was that the GMs who have interviewed for the position have been told, that their say is not the last say. It's a collaborative team effort, I guess, and so that has driven several of the candidates away, I guess. But Kekalainen stuck around after that and still there. So I don't think it necessarily makes a huge difference in the way they operate. I think he's more of a contact to other GMs throughout the league. Something that I don't know how much of that Tulsky has done in the past. I don't know how much of that was Don Waddell. I know he's been in those conversations and things like that, but I don't know how much he's been the one reaching out to other GMs for other teams.
Right.
So he may be useful for that. One thing, it seems, I don't know how much of this you could put on, the GM of the team, but all of those stars he typically trades for don't stick around after they don't extend in Columbus. That is probably partially because it's Columbus, but
I think it's mostly because it's Columbus.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to stick around in Columbus any longer than I had to.
Yeah, so I don't think much of that comes back on him, but I don't think it'll be he's the one making decisions. I think it's a little bit different than his role in Columbus.